We continue on in the fantastic journey going through the Bible, and we're into Leviticus, starting about chapter 17 now, 17 through the end of the book. I was going to kind of cover that all today until I started to realize there's a lot in there. So we're going to end up dividing it into, well, at least two parts. Now, I've heard the Bible referred to numerous times by people as God's rule book. Have you ever heard that or said that? The Bible is God's rule book. You know, I think it's really important that when we look at the Bible that we don't think of it that way. That we don't think of the Bible as God's rule book, because in spite of the fact that there are over 600 laws and rules and regulations in the Bible, it's more than that. Even as we're going through Leviticus, which is filled with rules and regulations and do this and don't do that, it's more than that. Even Leviticus itself, for all its rules and regulations, is about more than that. This is a fantastic journey we're on. And even Leviticus fits in there. You know, as much as sometimes we find it hard to read and we look at the rules and we look at the laws and we say, what? And we struggle with them. This is part of a fantastic journey about how God is taking us from, back, if you like, to Eden. Remember, we started in creation. And the beautiful plan that God had to enjoy us for all of eternity, where you could be the object of God's affection for all eternity, but that was ruined by sin. So that we're now on a journey to get back to where we were intended to be. We come into Leviticus and we see some of the rules and how we fit in there. Because, just like David in what we read, stumbled and he fell and he made a bad choice. He sinned, in other words. We do that too. And God unfolds his plan. As we go through the Bible, we see how he unfolds his plan, giving us the rules and regulations and guidance and this to help us on how to live. Well, we've already looked at one of the major setbacks that the people of Israel experienced on their journey back to reconcile with God. We looked at the golden calf. I never realized before just how pivotal an event the golden calf was, when the people had come out of Egypt and they were receiving the law, but they fell into idolatry, building this idol and worshiping it. That it's a turning point, another turning point, and a really pivotal event, because God has said, I'm not going with you anymore. And you can go to the promised land, but I'm not going to be with you. And Moses pleads with God. He says, God, we need you. Yes, we need you. And Exodus 33, verse 16, we've already looked at this. But Moses asks God a very, very important question that leads into where we are. He says, how will anyone know that you are pleased with me and with your people unless you go with us? What else will distinguish me and your people from all the other people on the face of the earth? What else will distinguish us? How will anyone know that we're different? That's an important question. Even now, 3,500 years later, for us, that's a really important question. When we read Leviticus, and we think about all of its rules and its laws and its regulations, and some of them are, as we've already said, some of them seem pretty strange, pretty out of date, pretty out of touch, pretty irrelevant. The main point is not about the laws. It's about Moses' question. What will distinguish us? The laws and the rules, they're a means to an end. And what is that end? Very simply, they're about distinguishing the people of Israel, that's God's people, from the rest of the people on earth. It's about making how they're going to be different from the people in the land where they're going and in the people who are going to be surrounding them. What's going to be different about them? There are 3 verses in these chapters of Leviticus from 17 on that really capture this. The first is Leviticus 18:3, and it says this: "You shall not do as they do in the land of Egypt, where you lived, and you shall not do as they do in the land of Canaan, to which I am bringing you. You shall not walk in their statutes." It will be different. Leviticus 20, verse 7 says this: "Consecrate yourselves, set yourselves apart," if you like, "consecrate yourselves, therefore, and be holy, for I am the Lord your God." Be holy, be set apart. And Leviticus 20, verse 26 says this: "You shall be holy to me, you shall be set apart to me," it says, "for I, the Lord, am holy, and have separated you from the people, that you should be mine." Those words were not only intended for the Israelites 3,500 years ago. They're intended for everyone today. That if you are a child of God, God has set you apart to be different from the people in the world around you. Now, this is a really challenging question for us today. Are we different? And if we are different, how are we different? Can anyone tell that there's something different about us from the rest of the people around us in the world, or we just seem to be the same? So many ways that we think, that we value, the priorities we make, the choices we make, are they distinguishable from the world around us? That's what these chapters of Leviticus are all about. Now again, I can't go into all detail about all the laws, but it's really important that we grasp the point. I think I've shared this before. A friend of our daughter, our oldest daughter, once said to me that she didn't like church and Christianity because there were too many rules. And if you read Leviticus, you can kind of grasp that. But as I was talking to her, I said to her, did you know that there are only 2 rules of Christianity? Did you know that? In spite of Leviticus, there are really only 2 laws for Christianity. The rest is commentary. And really, as we come into these chapters here, that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with commentary on the 2 laws that make up what Christianity is all about. And we're going to look at the first one of those today. Because some of these laws really focus on the first of those laws. Now, can anyone tell me what the 2 laws are for the Christian faith? The first one, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, and all your strength, and you shall love your neighbor as yourself. And all of these laws that come in, and everything that comes on here in Leviticus are about those 2 things. And we're going to look today, this morning, for a few minutes, at the first one. To love the Lord your God. Because that's what they're all about. In chapter 17, verses 1 to 9, God is talking to Moses about rules about worship. You remember, this has just come after the sons of Aaron who were priests, because they were sons of Aaron, who was the high priest. They've taken it upon themselves to go and worship in their own way. They've taken the little incense burners there, and they've gone and done their own thing in a way that God didn't want them to. And the result was they were struck down dead. Now, that's a whole crazy story, very extreme in our mind, but it all has to do with the holiness of God. And God says this: "Speak to Aaron and his sons, and to all the Israelites, and say to them, this is what the Lord has commanded." And he goes on and talks about offering worship and offering sacrifices. And in verse 5 it says this, to this end, this is to the end, that the people of Israel may bring their sacrifices that they sacrifice in the open field, that they may bring them to the Lord, to the priest at the entrance of the tent of meeting, and sacrifice them as sacrifices of peace offerings to the Lord. Okay, who cares? What's that all about? And in verse 7 it says, so they shall no more sacrifice their sacrifices to goat demons after whom they whore. And this shall be a statute forever for them throughout the generations. What is this all about? God is saying that, that there really is a proper way and a proper place to worship. Have you ever heard anyone say something like, I can worship God on the golf course. I can worship God walking through the woods. I don't need to go to church. Have you ever heard anyone say that? Maybe you said that, I don't know. But the point that God is making here is he's saying to the people, you know what? You guys have a history of going wherever you want and worshiping any way you want, but you can't do that. It really does matter where you go and when you go. Oh, come on. How can it really matter? What difference does it make? We live in a day and age, not unlike those days 3,500 years ago when people worship wherever they want and however they want. People do that the same now. Still, I think the majority of people in Canada believe in God, but a very small minority of people come to church. Because they say you don't need to go to church to be a Christian, right? I believe in God, I can worship, I can pray, I can read the Bible, I can be a good person, I can do all those things. Why do I need to come here? Why do I have to get up early on Sunday morning and just gather and listen to this guy drone on and on and on and sing songs that, maybe I don't even like that style of music. You never get that some of that stuff on the radio. It does matter. It is important that we go to church, so to speak, regularly and consistently for a reason. Why? Going to church, so to speak, is two things. The first thing is it is a public act of identifying yourself with the one true God. When you come here, you are saying to anybody who sees you, anybody who knows that you come, that you belong to God. And it is a public act of distinguishing yourself from those who don't come. It is saying, I am different from the world around me. And that is one of the key things about what this is all about. This is an answer to the question that Moses asked. How will we distinguish ourselves? One of the things is by coming here, we distinguish ourselves and say, I am different from the world and its values. So what happens if we don't go to church? Or if, I'll go this week, but, next week I really feel like sleeping in, or, maybe I just want to do something else, make it. I've heard, and this irks me, church experts, church growth experts, church analysts, if people come to church half the time, that's good. That's the new norm. That if you come every other Sunday, or on average 50% of the time, you can count that as good. What does not going to church consistently do? Well, just as going to church is a public declaration, not going to church is a public declaration as well. It's a public declaration that separating ourselves from the everyday world and identifying with God is not important. So if I choose not to come to church when I don't have a really good reason other than I don't feel like it, or I got to go shopping, or I got to do something, if I choose not to come to church, I'm saying to the world and to anybody who knows, it is not And if you're a parent, what are we teaching our kids? We're saying, everything else is more important. I don't know how many parents I've dealt with this over the years where, hey, we can make it to church all summer, but once hockey season starts, kids got to go to hockey. What are you teaching the kids is important? Not going to church is a way of telling those who don't follow God through Jesus Christ that they're just fine the way they are. That they don't need to identify with the people of God. They don't need to identify with the one true God. Everything we do, every choice we make is a testimony to the world around us. Moses asked, how do we distinguish ourselves from the world around us? We need to ask that question ourselves. And one of those things is really the importance of coming regularly and consistently, if we are able. Now I realize there are reasons why sometimes we're not able. But regularly and consistently to worship God as a testimony that we are different. It's a proper place, a proper time, but there's also a proper way to worship. Now, in Exodus 17, we're dealing with issues that are irrelevant to us in a lot of ways. He gets into this whole section on eating blood. Now, that's really not much of an issue because we don't do animal sacrifices, so we don't have to worry about grading the animals before we eat and all that. But what was important about this? What was important about this? Eating blood was a religious practice of some of the peoples around them. They actually made that a part of their religion. And they used it as a means of connecting with God. They used it as a means of connecting with God. Leviticus 17:14 says this, for the life of the creature is in its blood. Its blood is its life. Therefore I have said to the people of Israel, you shall not eat the blood of any creature, for the life of every creature is its blood. And whoever eats it shall be cut off. They're trying to, the people around them were trying to find different ways to God and creating their own ways. And God was being very important that life belongs to God. There is no other way except, that we can create. Our lives belong to God. And ultimately, of course, when we talk about blood being shed, he's pointing ahead to Jesus, right? He's pointing ahead to Jesus. And the sacrifice of that shed blood. We need to be distinguishing ourselves from the practices of the world and recognize that the only way is through the blood of Jesus. It really does matter. Some people will say, well, one religion's the same as another religion. Does it really matter? Yes, it really does matter. You can find all kinds of commonalities between the Christian faith and the Muslim faith and the Jewish faith and the Hindu faith and whatnot. You can find all kinds of things that are similar, but there's a really key difference. Christian faith isn't about what things you do, what laws you keep. It's not really about, even loving God, loving your neighbor. Christian faith is about Jesus. And that's the distinguishing thing. Everything else flows out of that. Everything else flows out of that. Chapter 21 goes on to talk about various rules for the priests. We've already talked about the importance, how they dressed and everything like that. Some of the rules, verses 1 to 3, says this, the Lord said to Moses, speak to the priests, son of Aaron, say to them, no one shall make himself unclean for the dead among his people, except for his closest relatives, his mother, his father, his son, his daughter, his brother, or his virgin sister, who is near to him because she has no husband. For her he may make himself unclean. Okay, what's that all about? You remember the priest, in order to go and perform the ceremonies, had to go through an extensive process of washing and cleansing, to be clean, because you couldn't come into the presence of God without being ceremonially clean. And this was so important. Imagine, if you will, you're the priest, and you're on duty to go and offer sacrifices. And somebody close to you, someone valuable to you, if you look at the rule, I mean, it could even be his wife, his best friend has died. He's not allowed to go into the presence of that dead body unless it's somebody incredibly close, like mother, father, daughter, son, brother. There is a cost to worshiping God. Have you ever thought about the cost of worshiping God? There are important things in life, but they must be subordinated to our worship of God. How many things are we willing to say no to because worshiping God is more important? Sometimes I know I've experienced people say, I got family activities. They keep putting them on Sunday, and I have to go there. That's the last time he said, well, you know what? No. I'm sorry, I can't, because my priority is I have to worship God. Are we willing to say no to other things? Because every time we make a choice, we tell people what's important. I can say that worshiping God is important, but do my choices bear that out? Do your choices bear that out? We need to examine the choices we make. Go on to chapter 22. And another one of those great things like, oh my goodness, more animal sacrifices. Yay, why do I care about animal sacrifices? They're done. There's a section in there, verses 17 to 25, that talks about unacceptable sacrifices. Oh goody, I can take my lamb there. Oh, it's got a black spot on its wool. It's got some other defect. Why do I care? What relevance is that? The whole thing here is really about what makes an acceptable sacrifice to God. There is such a thing as giving God an unworthy offering. For them, they were not to give any kind of defective animal or impure animal. It had to be perfect. It's because if you gave God anything that was less than the best, what are you saying about what you think about God? Do you give God leftovers? Or do you give God the first and the best? And that was the question that was really being considered there, because their worship was centered around animal sacrifices. Do they give God the best from their flock, or do they say, I don't want this one. Here, God, you can have it. It's only going to die anyway. Do we give God the first and the best of what we have? Or do we give Him what's left over? Well, of course, I got to pay my bills, and I need new shoes. I'm going to go out to dinner tonight. It's about time to go out to the restaurant. I've been out for a while. I really could use a better car. I don't need that clunker anymore. I need a nicer car, a bigger house. I need, okay, let's check the bills, the balance sheet. Oh, good, I've got this much left over after all the bills. Yeah, okay, it's not a lot, God. But, I give it sincerely. It's leftovers. And do we take that approach to what we give to God? Or do we say, the Bible talks about tithing, right? The 10th. Well, I'm going to be honest. Some of us should be giving more than 1/10 of our income. Ooh, that's scary. Now, take heart. Some of you should be giving less than 1/10 of your income. You give you a breakthrough. But it's about, are you giving God the first and the best? Are you giving Him leftovers or quality? Because it's not about quantity of our offering, it's about quality, whether it's our money, whether it's our time, whether it's our talents. And then Jesus told a story, well, he didn't tell a story, that tells a story about Jesus in the Bible in Mark chapter 12. Jesus, he's in the synagogue, or temple, I'm not sure which it was at, and it says this, it says, he sat down opposite the treasury and he watched people putting money into the offering box. How would you like that? Next Sunday I'm here, I'm going to follow the ushers. And I'm going to watch to see what you do. How'd you like that? You wouldn't like that, would you? But that's what Jesus was doing. He was sitting there. He was watching what people put in. It says, many rich people put in large sums. And a poor widow came and put in 2 small copper coins, which make a penny. And he called his disciples to him and he said, truly I say to you that this poor widow has put in more than all those who are contributing to the offering box. For they contributed out of their abundance, but she, out of her poverty, has put in everything she had. All she had to live on. Just a small little bit. Because she gave it in faith. She gave it in love. She gave her first. She gave her best. She trusted in God to take care of her and her needs. She wasn't looking after her self-indulgence. She was worshiping God. All of these things, where we worship, how we give, all of these things are expressions of our love for God. If we want to do things our own way, that's fine. Go ahead. God's not going to stop us. But the reality is God's not going to accept it either. God isn't going to accept it. Do we want to be a people distinct from the world around us? If we do, these are examples the Bible's teaching to demonstrate how we love the Lord our God. If we don't want to be different from the world, God will let us be that. But then we have to ask our simple question. Why are we here? I think we're here because ultimately we want to be a people distinguished from the world around us. We don't always know what that means. But God is giving us examples that we can learn. We can examine ourselves. We can put the Bible up in front of us like a mirror, if you like, and say, yeah, I see myself there. It's time to change. That the world may know there is a God who loves us, who's on a mission. He's taking us with him, and he wants to take everyone else with him as well. Let's pray. Our Father God,